that's planned orders. That's kind of manipulating the planned order from this list. Now let's talk a little bit about how it comes up with a planned order. I'm just going to scroll down. There's some sections down here that I want to talk about. So my cursor up above, I put onto that item that we were talking about, so it automatically filled this in for me based on the work I'd done up above. So this is the inventory item that my cursor was on. On the right-hand side, I've got a quantity on hand of 1475 that's being read from Dynamics real time. There's a safety stock. If I've got a safety stock in Dynamics, it would show it here. The very first line here is showing that I'm not reducing, even if I had a number, I'm not reducing that quantity by the safety stock. So therefore, in that scenario, safety stock is just a memo for me. Otherwise, it would reduce the safety stock down, it would reduce the quantity on hand by the safety stock, starting with my projected on hand as the beginning record in the transactional MRP section. So what's happening now, we're talking about filling bottles at this point, and they're eaches. And so I can turn, the scenario here is I can turn this thing on or off whenever I want to. I can say I can make the exact quantity that I want to. That's the scenario that I've built here. There is a scenario that I'll show you in a minute where you can say, I can only make it in these increments. I mean, I can only make a full batch. Whether you're a blending operation, food company, brewery, chemical company, etc., I've got a mixer, and I'm going to make a batch of a certain size, and I'm really not interested in making half a batch. And I'm certainly not interested in making 4 pounds. So even if 4 pounds is what I'm short, I can make a suggestion to make a full batch. And the way I do that is through the field called lot size. And I may need help remembering the fields in Solomon and in NAV. But in GP, it is on that same item resource planning screen called fixed order quantity. In NAV, there's a field, you know it?
Fixed reorder.
It's fixed reorder quantity in NAV, and then in Solomon, I think they've got an order quantity or lot size or something like that. There's a record for that as well. In all scenarios, that number is in inventory. It's not in vicinity. Okay. So we're just reading it. Right now I've got it set to 0. I'll go to an item where there is a number here in a second. So what you're looking at now are all the transactions ordered by date, and the order in which they're going to happen. How is that receipt? Trying to figure out what those first 2 lines are. That's really kind of interesting. It's almost like I'm missing a part of the planned order. Anyway, I'll come back and try to figure that out. Skip, don't ignore this.
Look at the date. The dates will go around those 2.
Yeah, they're old. Anyway, I'll figure that out. Probably maybe firm planning orders or something. That's kind of unusual. Let's look at these gross requirements. This is a finished product in my demo database. And so the first line that I've got on here is actually being read from dynamic sales order processing. So this is an order number in my demo database. Could be an order number and invoice number. So this is an actual requirement for that inventory. Below that, I start hitting forecast records, which I talked a little bit about. I can create it in Excel and populate it into our forecast table. And so now it's seeing forecast records here. So it needs 750 available at this date to be able to fulfill that forecast. And then I get to the next forecast record, etc. Because I've got inventory on hand, I can ride the storm for a while until eventually I run out and it looks like it's happening right about here at 900, and that's where it's kicking the 2. And then every other requirement is kicking out another planned order. It's really great. So this column under planned order is the date in which the planned order needs to be started. And the next line is when it needs to be received. So we treat it as a receipt, as though you're going to do it. So we put in the planned order, and then we act as though you're going to receive it to kind of net it. And then when it happens again, we do the same thing. So up above on the screen where we saw a whole list of planned orders, in effect, all it is these records. So we've just, up above, we've just pulled out the planned orders to make it easier for you instead of having to look at all of this. So this screen in V2, for those that are interested, used to be a separate screen. We've now brought it into the same planning workbench screen. And it's now called Transactional MRP. It used to be called MRP Inquiry. I use this screen when I'm trying to analyze what's going on with an item. Why is there this planned order? And you should be able to kind of follow the logical progression as to why the system is suggesting that you make something. That's the idea behind the screen. So with that said, what I'm going to do is let me go to an item where there's a standard size. And hopefully I don't have too much of this inventory. Okay, good. So I've just changed to a raw material that is made in a more traditional batch type of a mode, whereas that finished good is more of a packaging type of thing. So I'm not terribly concerned about the run size of the packaging from a planning perspective. I'm going to package the amount I need is the scenario we came from. What I'm showing you now is an item where I wouldn't normally make a partial batch. I would make a full batch or something like that. And that's what this item is. And so in this case, I've got 2 batch tickets. You can kind of ignore that. I've got those already in the system. These are planned orders that I've got sitting out there. So if I scroll down a little bit, here's that inventory item. I don't have any inventory over in Dynamics. Now I've got a quantity in the lot size. This is a standard batch size to me. This is when I go into production, I'd like to make it in roughly this quantity. So what the system is going to do is make suggestions in increments of this quantity. Not necessarily just one batch. So in this case, if I go through the same math that we've been looking at, I've got some sales orders out here or some batches that are requiring that product. Eventually I run out of inventory, and when I do, it kicks out a planned order. Now it kicks out a planned order in increments of 50s in this scenario. So it took me to the next range up to, in this case, it's basically the same as the requirement, but it would take it to increments of 50. So looking to see if I have an exception to that, which I don't. Okay. So planned orders, we can control the quantities, and this is set in formula management. When you set up a master formula, you can have a, rephrase that. It's set up in Dynamics on the inventory item, and you say here is the fixed order quantity or the fixed order number in NAV, and it's something similar in Solomon. So it's a Dynamics inventory setting. Okay.
So if you changed it into GP, is that a value that changes? Okay.
Yeah, it's being read dynamically with each MRP regen. And its only purpose is to make a suggestion on the quantity that you should make. That's all it's doing, and it's rounding to the next higher of those numbers, allowing you to come in and manually adjust it if you want to. So for whatever reason, I decide I'm going to go ahead and do 225. You say that's cool, or that's what you want to do for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. We've given you a suggestion based on the rules that you told us about, but you can call an audible and you can change that number, and then you would probably want to affirm it.
Okay. So otherwise it'll wipe it out.
Right.
And change it back.
Right. So in general, when you change something on a planned order, you probably ought to think about firming it. It is the message to Vicinity. Firming it is the message to Vicinity that please don't touch it. It's now under my control. So some people, when we start talking about reporting off of this data, first off, every company is different when it comes to scheduling, but some people think in terms of their schedule is batch tickets as well as firmed planned orders. In other words, a lot of people will choose to exclude unfirmed planned orders when they think in terms of their schedule, because they'll deal with the unfirms and make some decisions as to whether to firm them and put them on the schedule. The batch tickets plus firmed orders are things that I've looked at. Either I've manually gone and created a batch ticket or converted a planned order to a batch ticket, or I've firmed up a planned order. Somebody's looked at it, and somebody other than Vicinity has made a decision that you're going to do that. Okay. it's been interesting to me watching my development with this application on usage of the bucketed MRP concept. This is putting the same data in a horizontal view and using the buckets, using the periods of time that were up above. If you like that view, that's great. We got a lot of clients that just love this kind of summarized view of things. I tend to go to the transactional and just work with planned orders, but I don't do this for a living either. So
when you master schedule, you know how like you've got, once you start hitting the bigger
periods of time,
in the bucket.
Yeah, makes good sense. Now, one thing I did want to point out, the difference between suggested and scheduled is suggested is unfirmed planned orders like you're seeing here. When you firm an order, it goes from suggested to scheduled, so it'll automatically move from this line down to this line. And converse is true as well. These first two are actually batch tickets, so that those are going to be scheduled by definition. But as soon as I change a planned order from being unfirmed to firmed, it will move those columns for me. Seth pointed it out earlier, but when I make a change, the way these changes get saved is through commit changes. Otherwise, everything I'm doing, I'm just playing with. I'm just kind of seeing what would happen if I did this. It's not until I hit commit changes do those get saved, including firming and unfirming, etc. I've got 3 reports to work from. I've got a summary report. Given that I've got it hooked up, I'll be in good shape here. Good. So I've got a report. This happens to be being presented in Crystal. So this format can be really any way you want it to look. We've chosen to ship the reports in a very screen layout type of an approach. So it's kind of easy to follow. But that can be modified to the way you want it to look. Just trying to see where my cursor. There it goes. I can also run a bucketed MRP, which again kind of follows wherever my cursor was. It's picking up that item and it's showing me my bucketed MRP, basically the same data, just in a piece of paper format. I'm going to talk about, actually this is a great time to talk about it now that I have it up on the screen. There have been other colors on this screen, like these gold right here. These colors are actually meaningful. These colors are telling you that the system has found something with this item that you might want to take a look at, aside from being create a planned order. So red basically is saying create a planned order. But there are other exceptions that can exist, and I've alluded to them already, but let me talk through some scenarios. And I'm seeing them right here. I'm seeing a couple of examples right here. So there's a reschedule in, which basically means I've got a couple of batch tickets that I could use. It would be nice if you make them, but I could really use them on the 5th of April rather than the 1st of May. In other words, pull them forward on the schedule because I need them sooner. My alternative is you'll make it here and you'll be late. Or you can go create another batch, but then you're not going to need this batch. So it differs from a creating of a planned order because by definition this is saying the only reason I need this is for the demand that I need here. If I miss this date, then there's an argument to say I don't need to make it at all because I might lose the sales order. There's not another demand that there's a reason for me to make this product, so move it forward. If there is another demand, it'll just create another planned order for me. So it's trying to help you from being late. That's the issue. Pass-through receipts is pretty straightforward. It's already late. Can you do something about that? We've also got cancel in order. So if there's no reason to be making this from a supply and demand perspective, it will say, hey, you've got an opportunity to cancel this order and then go take a look at it. Scenarios that exist would be I go to make the product because I got a sales order out there, and then the sales order gets deleted or canceled or whatever. Now I don't need to make that order anymore. So that exception would tell you that hey, you don't need to make it. Okay. This is a table that can be reported on, and you can also view it in Vicinity View, which we'll be going over this afternoon. So you can have queries that basically show me all my past due orders, show me all my rescheduled ends, show me all my whatever, and you can do that. You can also create a report that puts it in an exact format you're interested in. So those are exceptions, and that's where the system is going through the data and scouring it and identifying kind of where it sees some potential problems in the data. Okay, that's it from the planning workbench perspective. In our vision, this is to help you stay in balance with supply and demand, making sure that you make enough product to meet the requirement that you've got. That's what it's about.